Hey there Star Wars fans and collectors, welcome to another Bosk's Bounty video. And as you can see today, I do have the Vintage Collection Gamorrean Guard. Okay, so this particular figure is a remake of the 2010 Gamorrean Guard. He is VC21, and there are some subtle differences between this new release and the previous release, which I'm just going to go through in a minute. We'll start with the card to begin with, so let's have a quick look. Now, what I'll do is I'll show you them side by side in a second, but I'm just going to point out what I feel are the main differences of the card. So the new Vintage Collection cards are definitely made out of a different cardboard, and they are a lot flimsier, so they bend quite easily, and I'll be able to show you the difference in a second. They've improved the image of the Gamorrean Guard massively, so on the other card in a minute, you'll see that the image colour and clarity is much better on this particular card, the new card. And you'll see that the image of him is slightly zoomed out a little bit, so you get a little bit more of his head where the bubble overlaps. Also different is the nameplate. So we've got dual language. You've got the original Kenner logo at the bottom as usual. Lovely Return of the Jedi card. So let's get them side by side and we can actually have a proper look and you can see what I'm talking about. So as you can see on this particular card, he is a lot better colouring, so this one looks a bit overexposed, too bright, the green's not right, or they haven't sorted out the lighting, you can't even see his eyes, whereas on this one you can see the image a lot better, so they have improved that, so that's a good thing. As I mentioned before, the card on this one, these older vintage cards in my opinion are a lot stiffer than these are a lot more flimsy and bendy. Now I haven't got this guy loose, but we are going to open this one up, so we'll be able to compare the figure when we look at the figure out of the package against the one that's in the bubble here. So unfortunately I haven't got this one loose, so I can't show you them side by side loose. Let's just have a quick look at the back of the card. So as you can see, this is the original VC21 here. It has a picture of the original vintage Gamorrean Guard, and has a little bit of spiel about him there. Now this is what we want, Hasbro. These are the sorts of backs of the cards that we want. These new backs aren't great. So we've still got the numbering VC21, but we've just got the newest wave of figures included there. The Vintage Collection logo, Disney Hasbro on the bottom, and a load, half the card is taken up by legal crap. So I'll just hold them side by side there once again, so you can get a good look. So you can see his horns there are just below the nameplate, whereas this one there just slightly overlapping because he is just slightly more zoomed out. All right, so let's get on with getting this new one out of the package, and we can compare him against the old figure. Okay, so right off the bat, obviously this is a great looking figure. They've done a pretty good job with the Gamorrean Guard. I do have a couple of gripes about it, I must admit. So the first gripe is the soft goods. I always felt that it was a little bit too high up his waist, and it ended up making him look like he had like a big nappy on, or even like a tutu or something like that. But we'll let them off for that for the time being. The rest of the figure looks great. Now I will show you in a second, but another thing that I'm a bit worried about with this particular figure is the paint job isn't the same. So on this one, I don't know if you can see, but you can't really see his eyes that well. They're not painted that well, and I'll show you the other figure in a minute, and hopefully you'll be able to see past the bubble. But his eyes look a lot better. They're more, I don't know, they've just got like a little bit of white, a little tip of white paint, which really does help bring out the eyes, because they are quite sort of set back in his face. Apart from that, there isn't too much difference with the figure. The only other glaring issue that I have with the figure is the weapons, and as you'll see, this particular weapon is just a brown stick with silver painted for the axe, whereas on the other figure, the previous figure, there is some weathering going on to give it a bit more of a sort of rustic effect. I'm not really sure why they haven't done that on these. Let me know in the comments if that is the same on your figure. The other thing that I didn't really particularly like about this figure was the fact that his headgear is removable, because it is actually quite loose. So it looks good when it's on there, but you know, he looks a bit funny without it, doesn't he? But it is quite loose. It falls off quite easily. Now the 6-inch version, that is moulded on, so I'm not really sure why they chose to do that years ago when they originally released this figure. I personally would have made that stay on, but still, you can't have everything with the figure, and he is really, really good. You know, there's some great paintwork going on with his leather effect and his black belt and his little gauntlets and silver pieces on his armour. He is a pretty good looking figure. He's got the black straps on his feet. All the usual articulation that you would get with a vintage collection figure. I'm just going to have to take this off now, because otherwise it'll fall off when I start moving his head. So his head, you get a pretty good range on his head. As you can see there, you can lift it up about that far. Left and right spin. Not too much else going on there. Looks to be on a ball, but with his shoulders you get a little bit of restriction there. Put that back on. There he has ball jointed shoulders, ball jointed elbows, and he has wrist articulation that spins. No joint on that hand, and neither on that one. Bit of movement around the waist, just a spinning effect there. Legs are really stiff, not too much movement with those. He has knee joints and he has ankle joints as well. You can see that. So yeah, as you can see, his soft goods there, I think it's just a bit high. It needs to come down a bit. It's a bit of a funny one. If I just bring the Black Series 6-inch version into shot, and you'll just see what I'm talking about. I think it just needs to be a bit lower and less puffy. I think they've got it bang on with this guy. But it is a smaller figure, but I don't know, they could have just done better with that. Now let me just show you what I meant with the eyes. So I don't know if you can see. You can just see his eyes better. And then you've got the weathering there on his axe. So if we compare that to this one, you know, this looks minty new. He's never used it in his life. This one is how it should be. And also the actual stick looks a bit thicker as well. The actual handle to the axe, that looks a lot thicker than this. Also, his pike or staff on the old figure is all gunmetal grey with some weathering effect of the rustiness going on, whereas this one in the new figure has been painted brown and not very well either. So you've got some missing paint there. This just seems to be a bit lazy to me. If that's supposed to be like the weathering effect, that just seems a little bit lazy to me. So we've got pros and cons really. So if you're a loose collector, then I would probably want the original figure. I also think that his skirt is slightly darker on the older figure as well. Yeah, so if you're a loose collector, then I'd probably want this one. Whereas if you're a carded collector, then I think the new card is superior. Alright then guys, well let me know what you thought about these figures. What do you think of Hasbro re-releasing the figures in general? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button down below. It really does help the channel. Subscribe if you're new, and we shall see you on the next video.